Tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki roto, tuia ki waho, tuia tātou te tangata, kei te kaupapa o te hui nei, kei te kaupapa o te rangi nei, mori ora ki a tātou katoa. Bind above, bind below, bind within, bind beyond, bind us, the people, to the purpose of our meeting, to the purpose of this day, breathe life into all of us. So we have some people on Zoom this morning. So if everyone could remember to use your microphone when speaking, otherwise they won't be able to hear. And if you wish to speak this morning, just raise your hand and we'll keep track of what's going on. We do have some apologies this morning. We have apologies so far from Councillor Maru, Councillor Shellcrass and Councillor Greening. Are there any other apologies this morning?
For the mayor for absence or lateness. If he comes, if he doesn't come at all, it's absent, and if it's lateness, if he comes late, it's lateness. Excellent,
got it all covered. So there are the apologies. Do we have someone to move those apologies? Thank you, Councillor Dowler, a seconder. Councillor Ellis. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. A public forum this morning, we have no one registered in public forum. So we will move to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest for the meeting this morning, please? No declarations of interest. We do have some minutes to be confirmed. They've been in your papers. They're the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of August. Can they be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting? Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Kinnenmonth, seconded. Councillor Dowler, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Could I just welcome back Mr. Kirby after his holiday? So welcome, Richard, and could I just record my thanks to Jamie McPherson for stepping into the acting role during Richard's period of absence. So really good to see our managers getting those opportunities to step up and see the world through another lens.
Such a good job. I'm just about out of a job.
Oh, you said that, not me. All right, so we're going to start off this morning with a presentation. So I shall hand it over to you, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just before I hand over to Phil for his report, I wanted to introduce Kirsty. Kirsty Scammell joined us about a month ago. She's my EA and the EA to the IS&T team. Delighted to have her on board. She's already helping me out like you wouldn't believe. And takes over from Rian, who has moved on into a project role. So I think it's great that we've given Rian the opportunity to progress within the council and do something different. It's also great that we can pick up the likes of the calibre that Kirsty has brought to the organisation. So she might want to say a couple of words about her background, and then she's going to retreat to the rear of the room like we do.
Thanks, Steve, for the introduction. So Kirsty Scammell. So yes, as Steve said, I'm his EA and EA to the IS&T group. I've come from Sport Tasman. I was there for 12 years. I've lived in Tasman region for 18 years now and just love it. Originally from Blenheim, so don't hold that against me, please. But I love living in Tasman region. So thank you very much for having me today.
All right, well, welcome, Kirsty, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Kia ora. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Piripi tuku ingoa, no te tai rāwhiti o Putipuna, kei te noho au ki te tau ihu. Thank you for having me here this morning, kia ora, to give you all a demonstration of our iwi engagement portal. And in fact, you'll notice that the title of my demonstration on the agenda is iwi Engagement Portal, although the cover page of my PowerPoint presentation actually says iwi Engagement, which is a slightly different interpretation of the portal. And in fact, what I'd like to suggest is that I'm going to talk a little bit about, not even about iwi engagement, about how we communicate together as cultures and as people. It's one thing to imagine how we communicate as a council to iwi, but I'd like to talk a little bit about how we as people communicate with each other. The way I'm going to do that is give you a little bit of a backstory on myself and talk a little bit about myself, to loan a little bit of provenance to the mahi that I do, and to describe a little bit about my journey and how this is relevant and what we've created here for council. Just as a little bit of background, I've been working with the TDC for the Tasman District Council for almost 2 years now. And I have been fortunate enough to have been involved in a couple of very fascinating projects, and those projects have been those that have allowed us to engage with our customers and with our ratepayers, from developing systems to enable click and collect systems through the libraries during the COVID period, right through to engaging with our welcoming communities team to allow the engagement between our people coming to our district and to our whenua, and connecting with people of like minds as they come into our district. So let me move on with the presentation. You would have, some of you will have noticed that I introduced myself through my mihi, or my mihi, or even a paku mihi, which is a traditional Māori greeting or introduction that's usually often used to formally introduce myself to a group of people. Mine was a mihi or a paku mihi, a very short mihi. Mihis can be of varying lengths, and I guarantee I've sat and enjoyed some very lengthy mihis, or pepehas as they're called, if they get to that extent, because an introduction can be as simple as what you see up on the screen there, which I'll run through in just a second, or it can go on to describe my ancestry, my maunga or my mountain that provides me shelter, or my awa or my river that provides me sustenance and nutrients throughout my journey through life. But just to walk you all through my mihi, just so that you do understand who I am and where I come from. The first line of my mihi started, tēnā koutou katoa. That'll be something we're probably all very familiar with. Basically says hello. Hello to everybody. Nice to see you. Thank you for having me here. Ko Piripi tuku ingoa. So my name is Philip, but I am using the non-deplume Piripi here, which is the name that my mother gave me. My mother's the only person in the world who actually uses that to refer to me, and usually when I've done something that she's not particularly happy with, I'll get a phone call and she'll say, Piripi. And I'll say, oh no, what have I done? The next line says, no te tai rāwhiti tuku tipuna. This is a really important one. This is the one that tells you where I'm from and tells you where my ancestors are from. And you would have noticed the te tai rāwhiti, which means that I'm from the Gisborne district, or my whānau, that's my whenua. I'm from the Gisborne district. And the final line that I use here is ke tō noho ao te te tau iru, because that's where I live. I live here with the rest of us. I live in this beautiful part of the country, the top of the South Island. As I mentioned, my mihi I could extend that out and tell you a little bit more about myself, and I might just do that while we're sitting here. Ko Donald Whākua Urquhart tuku mātua. My father's name is Donald Urquhart. Ko Kura te Nona Kura Eruera tuku whaia. My mother's name is Kura te Nona Eruera. Now, this is a very traditional greeting, but it's also one that we use in all of our cultures, isn't it? Hello, hi, my name's Phil. I come from Nelson. I was born in Gisborne. These are conversations we have on a weekly basis. We might be meeting someone in a conference. We might be out for a lunch or out for a dinner and we're meeting somebody that we've never seen before. We might be down at the Star and Garden having a beer and someone's wandered up for a bit of a kōrero and we introduce ourselves. And this is how we calibrate our communications that we're going to have, or our engagement from that point forward. Understanding how we're going to talk to each other, and understanding and understanding whether we know somebody from our history or we know the area that we've come from. It creates connections between us and makes those conversations run a little better. My last couple of lines, I introduced my parents to you through my mihi. What I'd really like to do is introduce you to them as people. There's a series of photos of my parents, my mother and father. If we look at the photo on the far left, that's my mum and dad. My mother being a 5-foot Māori woman from Te Tai Rāwhiti, as I mentioned, and my father being an almost 7-foot tall Scotsman or of Scottish descent. My mum standing on the back of that truck, she still only just barely reaches over his shoulder. This is and that box sitting on the back of that truck there, that's I think a Kelvinator freezer purchased in 1976. This was the first piece of whiteware that they purchased as a couple. And so if we want to talk about Māori, non-Māori engagement, here's a really good example of that and what it means to someone from the heart and from the aroha. And in fact, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of that photo, there's the result of that particular engagement. It's little Phil, that's little Piripi in the pushchair there. And there are another couple of photos of my mum and dad there. So my dad, his waka, or the Jesse Reedman, sailed into Port Chalmers in Dunedin in the 1840s. And that's where our Scottish roots came from, our ancestry from Scotland. Sailed out of Inverness, took the 3-month journey across the water and landed in Dunedin. And our family from there sort of moved into the central parts of Otago and have farmed there ever since. We've been a farming family for many generations. And my mother, as I mentioned, is and myself are of North Kata iwi. She happened to be on you may recall the access schemes that were prevalent around the country in the 70s and the 80s. Well, she was part of one of these schemes and was brought down to the South Island from Tai Rāwhiti to engage in some mahi around the farms, in the farming areas. So one day my father is mustering the sheep and bringing them into the shed, and he looked across the wool shed and he noticed this beautiful Māori wahine as a rouseabout, as a rousey working on the sorting table. And the rest is history. That's a story as old as time. It's not. I'm not the only one to have probably been, product of a meeting of that nature. And so they fell in love and they raised a family together. And in fact, so if we forward through to that image on the right hand side, that's my mum and dad. Just probably last year, just before Gabrielle kicked in, we're up in Gisborne on Waikanae Beach, the beautiful Waikanae Beach. Mum and dad kept saying that has some significance for me. I'm not going to dig any deeper into that comment, but I just took the photo, and but you'll notice that. So my father, in the left-hand photo, they used to call him Big Red, but they don't call him Big Red anymore. They call him Big Grey. But he's about 6.5 foot tall now. My mother's about 4.5 feet tall. But while their size and stature, they've shrunk a little bit, their love for each other hasn't diminished at all. Okay. So that's a little bit about where I came from and my parents. I want to talk about a little bit about what I did in my discovery or my journey of discovery as a young Māori and European descent Kiwi, and how I went through to trying to discover a little bit about my cultural roots. So in the 1990s, I think it was around about 1995, I started a band. I got a group of young friends of mine. We were living in Palmerston North at the time, and we were big fans of the Howard Morrison Quartet. It wasn't a popular band in the 90s for teenagers, but we thought, we were big fans, particularly as they were a prominent Māori entertainment group, and Howard Morrison was the man. So we decided to start our own little band and thought we'd see how we would do. And we were in Palmerston North at the time, as I mentioned, and we got picked up by a manager and a label. We got shifted up to Auckland, and we started gigging around the district. And in fact, the manager who picked us up, he was a little bit of a scallywag. I think there's a lot of people that worked in the music industry in the 90s were, and he knew we were a young Māori cultural group. We would start our gigs with a bit of a haka and a bit of a e papa wairani, bit of a song, a bit of a waiata and a bit of a haka. But we would also play, Split Ends and Dave Dobbin, a lot of Kiwi music. We're a really quintessential Kiwi band. Anyway, our manager decided, as I mentioned, a bit of a rascal, a bit of a scallywag. He thought he'd line us up a gig at a bar up in Auckland, north of Auckland, actually called the Riverhead Tavern. I don't know if anybody knows where the Riverhead Tavern is, but in the 90s, it was a bit of a rough dig. It was an old bikie hangout. particularly a Pākehā biker gang hang out. And he was inviting us there to stir up some trouble. And we stood up in front of these guys and we just went for it. We did our haka, and we started to get a little bit of aggressive feedback from some of the audience. But they realised that we were there not in an aggressive nature. We were there to entertain people, and we told stories and we sang, we danced. And within about half an hour of this scary moment happening, everybody had settled back down, and we ended that evening as very, very good friends, and we were invited back there on many occasions. And I'd like to think that during that we opened some people's eyes, and we just changed the way some people thought. And that's sort of what I'm trying to do here today. So that's a little bit about our band that I created. But all good things must come to an end. So that band ended, and I'll tell you what ended that band was me getting married and my wife deciding I needed to make some real money, because I wasn't making quite enough money to support these two beautiful young wahine on the right hand side here. So in 1998, my wife and I got married. 6 months later, our first daughter was born. I'll let you do the maths on that. I think that's another story that's as old as time within New Zealand. And so these are my two daughters here, Samantha on the left and Kaylee on the right. They both live in Wellington, and they're artists. They work in the art community. My eldest daughter, Samantha, she paints murals, and her murals are a blend of Māori and Celtic art, something that she's grown up with herself. And you may actually see some of her artwork as you're driving around the capital. She's recently acquired Orana Tamariki buildings within Wellington at the moment, but she's hoping that will go somewhere else because she's a struggling artist. My youngest daughter on the right-hand side, she did a degree in digital design and animation, and she was approached by a Japanese animation company to come and do some work for them, to develop some characters and some artwork for their systems. They approached New Zealand a couple of years ago because they were interested in the Māori cultural art type and the style, because it's very conducive and it's a beautiful thing, and they were interested in seeing how could that be implemented into the Japanese art style. So they're both struggling artists, as I was at their age. Hopefully not for too much longer, because it's a bit of a burden on the wallet, but it's one that we're all familiar with and we're happy to provide. Just to talk a little bit about myself and where I come from. So my wife and I packed up and moved from Central Otago to Nelson District about 12 years ago. And when I first came to Nelson, I took up a role for a company that operates out of Nelson called Blueberry IT. One of the things that attracted me to Blueberry IT was their philosophy around the mahi that we did, which was using cloud-based technologies and engaging with the customer and providing systems very similar to the approach that we as a council take, in fact. But also that they engage with all iwi around Te Tauihu. So through this, I got the opportunity to work on a number of really fascinating projects again. So the photo on the left is me with a tuatara. As you may know, Ngāti Koata are the kaitiaki of the tuatara, the guardians of the tuatara. So we were doing some work with them to digitally bring the taonga of the tuatara to the rest of New Zealand via video feeds and web pages and things like that. And it was a really fascinating project. It was one that was really interesting to me, and we got really close to delivering it, and then COVID kicked in. So unfortunately, that was sort of canned and was put on hiatus, and I didn't get the opportunity to finish it. The image on the right is it was with me with the Honourable Jerry Mataparai, who was the Governor General at the time. We had been involved in a digital innovation project, the uplift of the digital platform for the Te Atiawa, Te Waka Maui, out of Picton. And we did some really good mahi there, and we were recognised for some of the work we did there. And I was very honoured to spend 10 minutes explaining what we did to the Governor General, who sort of stood and stared blankly at me and sort of nodded and said, "Well done." I'm sure he understood what we were doing, but it was really nice to meet him and to enjoy some time with him. So let's talk a little bit about the mahi that we have been doing and who that mahi relates to. So that mahi that we're doing at the moment relates to the tangata whenua tribes of Te Tauihu, iwi scattered around Te Tauihu. And we'll just run through the iwi that we are engaging with at the moment. So Rangatane or Waido, Ngāti Kuia, and Ngāti Apa ki te Rato. And they're of the Kura Haupo waka. They were tangata whenua of Te Tauihu, of our whenua, when the Kawhi and Taranaki tribes migrated to the district in the early 1800s. Some of those tribes are the Ngāti Toa Rangatira, Ngāti Koata, and Ngāti Rārua, descended from the Tainui waka. They migrated to Te Tauihu in the 1820s and the 1830s from their original rohi in the Kawhi and Taranaki districts in the west coast of the North Island. Ngāti Tama ki te Tauihu are of the Tukumaru waka, and they migrated from similarly northern Taranaki again in the 1820s and 1830s. There's a bit of a migration at that stage coming down the west coast. And finally, Te Atiawa o Te Waka o Maui of Aotea or Kura Haupo descent, and also migrated in the 1820s and 1830s from that same area. So there was a bit of a migration at that time. So yeah, that talks a little bit about our iwis. Another thing I'd just like to mention before we move into talking about the portal that we've developed is just a little bit of a story, a bit of a backstory on the first engagement between iwi and Pākehā or non-Māori people. And this happened in our own backyard. This happened just out here. You could probably go and stand out on the beach and see where this happened. So on the 13th of December in 1640, Abel Tasman, I'm sure we all know who Abel Tasman is, he sailed his two ships up the west coast and around the end of Farewell Spit and into the bay. The Farewell Spit being protecting our beautiful bay. And the local inhabitants, or the local Māori, the local iwi of Ngāti Tumatakokiri, came out to greet him on the beach. They actually launched 2 waka from the beach and paddled out to welcome these strange ships that had sailed in off the horizon, ships that they'd never seen before. They may have heard of them before, I'm sure they'd been sighted, but had never seen anything like it in their lives. So on their way out, they blew a couple of blows on their pukaya, on their trumpets, the wooden trumpets that you may have seen. And at that time, the Abel Tasman's shipmates on board his ship thought, "Oh, this is a welcoming. Let's return that welcoming in kind," and had their bugler or their trumpet player stand out on the prow of the ship and return that message via a blast on the trumpet. What they didn't realise at that time, that in fact that response to the original trumpet blast from our iwi was actually a challenge, and that response was an acceptance of that challenge. So what that little story tells me is that just through simple misinterpretation, we can really create a initial engagement and a miscommunication. It can set things off on the wrong foot and certainly set a bad vibe for the initial engagement between these two cultures. And it's something that's sort of rippled on and continued on through generations. We're in a position now to amend some of these ways that we communicate. And some of the ways that we can do that is through technology. And so now I get the opportunity to lead you through the process that we engaged in when creating our engagement tool. So we began the consultation on this over a year ago, probably closer to 18 months ago, when Jenna Neem, who was in a kohautu role at the time, came to me, and we talked quite passionately about this project. We had some outlines around how this would work. Nelson City Council, incidentally, had just completed their own iwi engagement portal, and we'd been given some demonstrations of that portal. Unfortunately, given some technical limitations of their system, we weren't able to engage and utilise their portal, which we were hoping to do. So we thought, let's put that aside and start to develop our own tool in-house. So the initial development team consisted of the people you see in front of you: Jenna, Edna, Amy Clark, the considerably more youthful-looking me, with less facial hair and less grey hair, and Nell Kelly, who had joined the team at around about that time. You may recall around about that time, Janine, our CEO, went on to work elsewhere, and Leonie moved into the CEO role temporarily, and Jenna was taken out of her kahotu role into that Chief Operating Officer role. So we lost her for a little bit of time there. So Edna stepped into that role, and Nell Kelly very aptly, and it was a great opportunity for them to engage with our iwi, because both are very familiar with our iwi and te tau ihu. So that consultation, while we consulted internally, we also consulted externally, and we consulted with each of our iwi. The best way for us to create consultation in a platform is to actually engage with them and have them involved in the creation process, so that the tool that we use has been developed by all of us, not just in-house, with some instructions on how to use the tool. It's been constructed in almost a tino rangatiratanga approach, where we're all working together to try and create the tool. So you'll see that we've mentioned each of those iwi that I talked about a couple of slides ago, but in the bottom right-hand corner, we also consulted with our friends from the Nelson City Council. As I mentioned, they'd already developed their own tool, and we thought, why start from the beginning? Let's take some learnings from what the Nelson City Council have done. So we did that. So we were given a quick demonstration of the Nelson City Council's, the Nelson City Council's engagement tool. The tool that they titled Te Pari Karanga. The purpose of their tool was an operational tool to provide a coordinated approach to improve engagement on a range of projects to build true and practical partnerships. So it's a shared objective. It's the same objective that we have. So that was one thing we took away from it, was to develop a philosophy around the purpose of the tool. Here's a really quick look at the tool that they had developed, with a bit of a form on how to enter in projects. I won't go too much into detail on that. But one of the main things they developed was a traffic light system, because what iwi really wanted was a very quick way to feed back how they wanted to engage in particular projects. Okay, so there was a traffic light system which developed, to which, as you can see in front of you, the very quick responses from iwi were able to be pushed to council in a very quick fashion. No feedback, no issue at present, more information needed, etc., etc. And that platform was delivered via a SharePoint platform, which, if you are involved in our councillors' lounge, you'll be familiar with that. It's a Microsoft product that it gives access to files, information, and data. So we had to create our own philosophy. So we started by naming our tool. That was the first place to start. So we decided to name the tool Whakawhiti Whakaaro. That's a mouthful, but it's a beautiful mouthful. There's a beautiful kupu there, and there's some nice resonance within those phrases and the terms themselves. And what does that mean? Whakawhiti means to exchange and to swap. Whakaaro means to think, plan, consider, and decide. And while they are beautiful in their own individual elements, when used together, they mean something slightly different though. To discuss, deliberate, negotiate, and communicate, which I think is a very apt description, a very apt title for the tool that we've created. So here's a really quick look at the portal, or the homepage for the portal and the tool that we've created. You've noticed that we've used our beautiful carved waharoa, the gateway. It's used commonly to introduce people into marae, pā, spaces of interest, because it's a gateway that people can walk through and feel safe and feel protected. So this is our beautiful waharoa, based on Wainui Bay. Again, it symbolises a greeting or a welcoming into a safe place, using a bit of symbology and imagery. And so with that, I'm going to just minimise my, stop my slide, and we're going to have a quick look at, I'm going to give you a quick live demonstration of the portal itself. So here's the portal. Okay, we just saw a screenshot of the portal. Well, here's the portal live. We have representatives from all iwi in this portal, using the portal and engaging with our teams. Again, that beautiful waharoa introducing people into the space. There's a bit of there's some kupu and some words here, just welcoming people formally into our space. And if I click on the link here to the right, I can go in and have a look at all of the projects, and the projects are presented to us in a simple card format, very easy to see, very easy to read. You get from a simple glance, you get the name, you get the project manager, very important, plus a little photo of the project manager, where you get to see the project name and the mahi stream, the activities and the dates, important dates. And if I were to hover my mouse over here, this opens up and drops down, and we get all the contact details for the project manager, because this is all about communication and engagement, our ability for iwi to communicate back to us and for us to communicate things back to iwi. So I'll very quickly give us a look at the inside of one of our projects. So this is how a project presents when iwi connect or click on the link. And so while we have details around the project itself, the briefing details, we also see the level of engagement that iwi would like to take within each project. And on the right-hand side here, you'll notice that our team members are able to communicate directly to iwi, and iwi to communicate back to us if they have any pārtai or any questions. So making that communication platform wholly two-way communication, which is very important. Okay, now I think we're coming to an end of the demonstration because I'm sort of running out of time. But if anybody has any questions around the portal, I will just really quickly just talk to you about where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? So utilising our Microsoft 365 platform and Teams, we can create better communication between ourselves and iwi. Utilising apps, we can deliver these tools to not only to iwi, but people within our community via their phones and via their devices. And get better engagement is encouraged through better accessibility. And by utilising technology, we can do a smarter and a faster and more efficient job of that. So on that, I realise I'm sort of going over time a little bit here. So I'm going to end my presentation there. But if any of you have any questions or would like to talk to me further about the tool, or maybe be given some more demonstrations on what we can do with the technology we use, you can find me. I'm very easily accessible, and I like to talk about the things that I'm obviously very passionate about. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Phil. Appreciate the journey that you took us on there. And I can see the passion that you've got for your work. We did allocate 30 minutes for this section, so we probably do have time for maybe one question. And Councillor Hill.
You're not fast, you last. Kia ora, thank you.
Kia ora.
I think a question was raised in here about this iwi engagement portal, you know, what it was. So it's great to, isn't it, that we get response back around those questions and hear about it and see about it. What's one question about the uptake? So what's the feedback from iwi around this is useful for them, and are the iwi using it? And I was just wondering about, do people sort of get a pop-up of something new comes up on there, or is there what's the way in which people are appraised of, you know, goodness knows how many projects are listed on there?
Great question, thank you. So we do have representatives from each of the 8 iwi within the portal. Uptake has been what we expected. So one of the things we had to decide upon was how were we going to encourage iwi to engage and use the portal. By engaging with them around the development of the portal, gives a little bit of ownership of the portal as well. Not that it's the council's portal that we are presenting to iwi, but it is our portal that we all use. And one of the other methods that we've used to encourage use of the portal is to go to iwi and contact them and say, look, can we help you come into the portal, and can we help you to use it? You mentioned how do
I don't mind. So in terms of day-to-day actively using it, yes, that's the question, was around that uptake. So within our, we've also, backing on the iwi portal, we are utilising Teams to engage with iwi, and that is, we have contact with them on a daily basis. If not information going out, so any hui that we hold with iwi, agendas and things are loaded into the system, which encourages them to come back in. We can have a look through our Teams communications platform. We do have communications coming and going through it from all iwi on a regular basis, probably not on a daily basis, but at least on a weekly basis.
As to notifications and notifying iwi when projects have been loaded into the system, we do have a notification that goes out whenever a new project is loaded into the system. An email goes out to iwi of whom that project is relevant to, but also to the people within that iwi group who are responsible for that particular work stream, be it strategic policies, environmental interests, and so forth. That in itself encourages people back into the portal as well. So when a new project is loaded in, an email goes out. The email has a link which is clicked, which automatically opens the portal and brings people back into that portal. One other thing I will say is that we've developed within the portal a hui calendar which centralises and socialises all of the hui that have been organised between council and iwi, so that they are able to, and we are able to, keep a tag on when things are happening and when hui are happening, and so that we're not also overlapping on our engagements. That has also created a bit of a point of interest to engage and people and bring people into the portal itself. No problem.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time to take us through that. And if councillors have any further questions, we'll find Phil on level 2.
Yes.
Yep. Great. Thank you. So we will now invite Tony and Vaughan to come up, and we've got a 10-minute presentation on the Richmond Aquatic Centre. Welcome. I'll hand over to you, Tony. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And through the chair, my name's Tony Strange. I'm representing Parks while my manager, Grant Reburn, is called up for jury duty. So I don't know whether he'd rather be here or there. But anyway, I know where he would rather be. I'd like to introduce Vaughan Hope. He's the manager from CLM at our Richmond Aquatic Centre. He has a presentation that he will run through. We've got 10 minutes. And if you'd like to ask any questions, maybe afterwards might be better, but I'll just leave it over to Vaughan.
Cool. Thank you for having us here. It's been, I think, a good 2 or 3 years since we've had the opportunity, due to COVID and things like that, to just sit in front of you. And that for me was a bit of a challenge, because we like to give all the information we can, but to keep that into 10 minutes, I've kind of touched on, I guess, the more relevant things that maybe we haven't shared over the last few years. So I thought I'd start there. So if we go back to the financial year ending 2022, user numbers were just over 260,000. That was low for us, and that showed coming out of COVID that we did have some challenges to get through. Bouncing back to the financial year that's just finished, we've jumped back up to just over 300,000 users again, which is kind of where we sit normally. Obviously, moving forward into this year, we want to exceed that again. That does bring some challenges. The building is at capacity frequently, and you'll see that from the car park outside the building at 9 o'clock in the morning being full. So that presents us some exciting challenges for us to see how we can utilise the space differently, and to fill in gaps when the building isn't so busy. So that for us would be around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when the schools that have been coming in for lessons are exiting back to school. We do have a little bit of downtime there, and also late in the evening that we can work towards. But that's kind of that in a nutshell. The numbers are, I guess, the percentage of people that are coming in within different demographics is very consistent, and that has been that way for the last 3 to 4 years. We did get some feedback that Tony asked me to add into the presentation from a TDC satisfaction survey, and we got 95% satisfaction rate, which is the highest we've had in the last 2 years. So that's really, really pleasing to see. I always look at these things and I really want to know what the people that were at the lower end of that scale weren't happy with, or what they'd like to see. So we run many feedback surveys throughout the year. A lot of them are interpersonal, whereas we get different information coming through of the things that the people in the building at different times of the year are looking for, and also rating us on our customer service, our building preparation and the programs we're running. But it is very, very pleasing to see that one coming out of COVID, that we've actually had an increase in satisfaction from that survey. So that was really, really pleasing to see. Thanks for seeing that through, Tony. We had a year of successes, and we're about to go into these award ceremonies again in the next few months, but we won CLM Facility of the Year, something we're extremely proud of, with the amount of CLM facilities across New Zealand all delivering at a really high level. That was really, really cool to see. Our Chill Out program, which works with 5 to 13-year-olds for after school care and holiday program, won that department of the year. We did extremely well with our aquatics department of the year and our shop of the year, and we had 2 external awards within the last 12 months as well. Swim, which oversees swimming in New Zealand. We had Swim Teacher of the Year with Joe Loveridge, and that was a really, really cool recognition of her work and the stuff that she's doing in that space. And Byron Holt from our fitness team got an award from Te Mahiako, which was previously Skills Active, for the development he's been doing with the staff. Those awards are really, really cool, but what we really pride ourselves on is the stuff that we're doing in the community. That the awards are great and they're great recognition of what we're doing. However, the things that we really appeal to the team as success is the stuff we're doing and delivering in the community, whether it's supporting community fundraising efforts, developing Learn to Swim programs for the schools, and supporting athletes and other people in need in the community. So that's our real big take home for us. The photo on there is the giving tree that we have every year. That food gets donated back into the community. So that's the stuff we're really passionate about. I think 3 years ago I sat here with Crystal and we talked about NBS coming on to sponsor swimming lessons within the facility for those in need. We've re-signed that partnership again, and we've already delivered 140 lessons to 140 children that were in need. So to retain that partnership, something we've worked really hard on, and it's a great asset, we believe, within the community to be able to deliver those lessons to those kids. In terms of recent investments, the fitness centre, the Aquarun, that we've put back into the pool to replace the other 2, we're in a bit bigger and better this year, and that already has seen a massive increase in local youth coming in to use the pools. I don't know if you've ever been on Aquarun, it's a giant water feature just like the one up there, which offers challenges. It's really successful within the building. The other thing we've done in the last 2 years was add 24/7 to the fitness centre. That there was a really big process for us. We've had fitness centres across New Zealand where we've modified I guess the space to allow that to happen in that building. With the layout of the Richmond Aquatic Centre, it added more challenges where the gym was based and having the accessibility to the pools. So I think top of my head figure probably cost us an extra $100,000 to do that in that building to ensure it was safe. And we've had a great uptake as well, and people still uptaking using that. We've got very few people that work out at 2 or 3 in the morning, although there are a handful. There's a husband and wife that do it, but most people are coming in between 3 and 5 a.m, so just before we normally open, and they stay on from 9 to 11 p.m. at night. But it's a really good thing that we've been able to add. We've also upgraded all our point of sale systems and all our IT equipment within the last 6 months. So that's adding extra, I guess, benefit to members, where you can now, well, actually, as of about 2 weeks, you'll have to top up your membership from home or from your couch, or rebook your swimming lessons online, which is really cool. Probably the biggest thing though that we've been investing in is our team, and ensuring that our lifeguards are all really to go in case they're needed, and investing in all our people and making sure that they're developing both personally and professionally. In terms of health and safety, this year Pierre Holland, who comes down a little bit, he's our aquatics manager for CLM. He's been appointed to the Pool Safe Advisory Group. So Pool Safe is an award we go through every year. It's an external industry-led assessment of the pool, so it takes care of health and safety and all your pool water tests and training and policies and procedures, was really good. And Rachel, who's my assistant manager, she became a Pool Safe assessor this year, so she did the regions, I think it was in Upper Hutt and Wellington this year. So it was really cool for us to see what they're doing, and gives us some good ideas to use and bring back to our pools, but also to see where we really sit in terms of operations against other pools around the country. We've got 5 new health and safety reps that have all qualified. These guys are the ones that really, really wanted to get involved and make sure that we are delivering what we say we're going to deliver. So we've got Diana, she was our first one going in through there, Hayley, Rachel, Patsy and Joe. So they joined the team of everyone else that already had those qualifications. But the big news is we've just been granted an external health and safety accreditation, ISO 45001. It's an international health and safety standard that's set across all CLM sites. That interview for me personally on the day was about 8 hours long. So they check that the policies are correct and that we do deliver what we say, and they then go through the building on a fine-tooth comb and interview all the staff. I believe we're the only recreation provider in New Zealand to have that qualification at present. A couple of other developments that we've been working on with Skills Active. We've started, actually it releases in term 4, a pathway for Pacifica people, where we teach and improve their water skills and the ability to swim. Then we give them pathways in to learn to swim in lifeguarding. So there's employment opportunities from that, with the circle to loop back to, we hopefully within the next year will have Pacifica teaching Pacifica how to learn to swim, which is something that has come through that community that is necessary and needed, and then we want to transfer that over to Māori as well. So that's the work in progress. That it's a program, I think it's going to be the first of its kind in the country, and it's going to be released here, and then I think we'll see that filter out to other aquatic centres around New Zealand. The other thing is our Aurora program, which is technically based out of Whangarei. It's to develop our Māori leaders within our facilities, and they spend at least a week in our beautiful region. So that's the guys out there at Abel Tasman, the Wakahama place. So they bring into the region a great deal of knowledge, and they take away with all the offerings we have here. That's another program that's been running now for about 4 to 5 years, and it's something we're very, very proud of. The next program that we've started is we're partners with Choices New Zealand to give those with disabilities the benefit of employment. And this partnership here is, I think it got a merit at the last Recreation Aotearoa Awards, which was just recently up in Hamilton. But it's providing employment pathways for those that with disabilities in the community can cherish, and that's something we've been working on very, very hard, especially over the last 6 months. And it's going really, really well. Probably the big one for us is sustainability. And I attended the Decarbonising New Zealand conference at the end of 2022. I probably knew the least about the subject when I showed up in there. It was full of Parliament politicians and leaders within that industry. After about an hour, I changed my mindset. I had the most to take out of this conference. So after that, reporting back to CLM with what we needed to do in this space, we've appointed a sustainability manager, and he's working with all our sites to improve on performance in those key areas. But we've also made sustainability a pillar in our strategic plan moving forward. There's some big work being done in that space, which I think eventually we'll be able to just share a lot more. But I know CLM's been looking at wind farms and hydro dams and lots of very exciting objects, because unfortunately pools do use a lot of power to heat the water or gas. So Richmond Aquatic Centre is on heat pumps and therefore requires a lot of electricity. That's my 10-minute presentation.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Vaughan. I feel as though you've been a bit greedy with your awards this year. You seem to have claimed more than your fair share. Possibly got time for a question if we have a burning question. Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you again, Vaughan, for the presentation. Really interesting to see the width and depth of the stuff you now do at CML. And the pool from when we started, and it was just a pool, so it's a huge improvement from where we were originally. Just a couple of questions around staffing, really, because that's obviously a challenging area. And you did have a slide alluding to training and that it's done. Just I've noticed on one visit when we were there with our grandchildren that the lifeguards, how do I put this? You just wonder how focused they are at times. And do you give, obviously you talked about training, but do you do real scenarios?
Yep. So lifeguards in particular have the strictest training matrix that we follow. So they meet for 2 to 3 hours the last Sunday of every month, and they go from real world situations to the most craziest things you could ever think of and in between. What we've found in industry is you can do all the training in the world, but until you're put in that situation, you don't know what will happen. Over the last probably 3 to 4 weeks, we've had 3 to 4 seizures within the building. It's been quite normal for us to have so many incidents in one time, all not linked to being the building, but all the feedback we got was how well the staff managed those situations. And for us, yes, it's a lot of work for us, but if that had happened up in the hills or in any other situation around town, it's the best place it could happen because we have fast link to ambulance and the staff are highly trained to deal with those situations, and they all handle them extremely well.
Thank you. I could just have a follow-up question. So obviously, because of the nature of your business, there's quite a turnover of staff, I imagine, as well. So training would be an ongoing thing. And there'd be some variability in how long some staff stay and some don't. So is there any sort of recognitions for those that stay for a longer term and perhaps move into the teaching roles?
Yeah, so we have a high turnover of younger staff. Generally, they start with us in college, and then when they finish their college and go to university, they move on. But we always keep them on payroll because the school holidays, they're always back, which is really, really cool to see. We have recognition for staff members that have been with us for 10 years or longer, and we have an open door policy where the training we can give will match a university degree, but it's done on job. So we have pathways through learn to swim, recreation, you name it, management. We've got 4 to 5 staff at the moment doing high level management papers. Probably one of the key points is someone looking at Rachel Pike, my assistant manager, who started as a swim instructor, moved to a lifeguard, and then worked her way into a management role. So there's huge pathways forward within the environment. One thing we are proud of, if I can say, is staffing over COVID was a challenge for aquatics facilities in New Zealand. You'll notice some of the regions like Wellington and Christchurch were actually closing pools to staff others. We in the Auckland region ended up staffing a huge amount of Auckland facilities for Auckland City Council. And down here, we never reduced services or offerings. We always just made it work with the people we had, which was really, really cool. And we were really proud of the team to be able to do that. A lot of people put in a lot of work.
That'd be at the levels that you could operate, of course. Yeah. No, thanks for that. That's appreciated.
All right, thank you very much. We'll carry on. So once again, Vaughan, thanks for taking the time to pop in this morning. It's appreciated. Thanks, Tony. All right, councillors, we'll move to our community infrastructure group report. So starting on page 6 of your papers, and Richard, will start off with you, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things. First one, you'll note the Rivers and Coastal Structures team is moving into Infrastructure Science and Technology Group. They're actually physically moving on Monday. We've had discussions, well, Steve and I have had discussions with Rod Smith and Mike Schroer over the last 2 to 3 months on the effectiveness of the Rivers team operating on their own. And we believe it's much better if they fitted into Rod Smith's team and work with the hazards team and the environmental team the ecological team to make sure that they're all talking together and doing the right things for the rivers. So that's happening on Monday. And so that's the comment I have there. I don't know if there are any other questions around that. The other thing is not in your agenda, but I just want to comment on, and this is a result of the carry forwards that Council discussed last Thursday and the capital program. And there's 2 parts to that. One's the deliverability of it, and I'm certainly going to be working with the team and putting much greater focus on that. But there's one aspect about the comment around overrating. I gave some thought to that because it's been commented on several times. I had a look at the depreciation that this council is funding, and it's not funding fully depreciation. In fact, this year, we're underfunding depreciation by 34.8 million. Now, admittedly, 25 million of that is in the roading area and 10 million in the water area. So the fact that we've had to carry forward 27 million, a small portion of that, well, a portion of that is loan funding, some of that is interest. So the argument has been that, we've rated for that interest. But my comment to you as far as infrastructure across the board is that we're not actually fully funding depreciation. So in effect, we're underrating our community by the tune of $35 million this year. Now, you will note in the LTP discussions, you're looking to increase that depreciation portions, and at this stage, you're looking to reduce it right down. And over the next 2 to 3 years, that 35 is going to be down to more like 20 or 18. But my point to you, I think, today is just to say that the straight comment about capital program and we're overrating for capital program. If you look across the whole board of infrastructure, we're still underrating because we've still got renewals that need to be done, and we're building up debt underground, even though it's not shown in our books. So I just wanted to make that comment because I've really been vacillating over the comment about overrating. And I said, well, in the wider picture, we're actually underrating because we're not fully funding depreciation. And if we fully funded depreciation, can you imagine if we had an extra $34 million coming into our coffers each year, our debt cap will start dropping and we'll be spending more efficiently. So I just need to make those comments generally to start with because and I'm going to report formally back to the ops at the next ops meeting with the figures around that, just to explain that aspect of it. I think it's probably fair for our community to know the bigger picture of where we sit with our funding and with our infrastructure. And so I just make those comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you, Richard. Do we have any questions for Richard and his management update, pages 6 to 8?
I just have a question in relation to the comments you've just made, if I may, Madam Chair. So, Richard, just explain them more fully around the depreciation fully funding, because we're only 1 year or two away from that now. So we must be funding depreciation to a fairly large percentage now, I would have thought.
No, I think I was looking at a PowerPoint that you had when your discussions with the LTP, and a lot of the depreciation is still tracking towards the 100%. Some of that's 65%, and I think roading's only 49%. And if over the next 3 years you're looking to go up to 100%. So those are my comments. So what I'll do is in my report to you in next month is I'll give you more details of exactly what we're intending to do, what we're funding now.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering why there's that variation.
In variation in regard to what?
In percentages. Because I thought the depreciation was over everything that we fund.
I'll tell you now what they are. Roading non-subsidised, we're only funding 28% depreciation. Roading subsidised, 28%. Stormwater, 65%. Wastewater, 65%. Water supply, 65%. And solid waste, 90%. Now, if you add those up with what we should be funding 51 million of depreciation. But at the moment, we're only funding 17 million.
Okay.
Microphone off. Thank you, Richard. I think we can just maybe follow this up and you could put it in your report. Deputy Mayor Bryant's question is still not answered, which is why do we have a discrepancy in the percentage of depreciation being funded across the different asset classes? But if we can just include the explanation in that in your follow-up report.
Yeah, I can. That's a historical thing from way back. I think a decision was made back in 2015 before I arrived here about how depreciation we funded and gradually increased it over the 8 years, and how each of those activities were picked on. In other words, the 28 and 65%, why they were like that. I'll have to find out details or reasons for that. So I can't answer that.
All right, thank you, Richard. So I see that Brian's managed to come back from his exercise this morning. So we will move to transport. So Jamie, I understand, is unwell today. Welcome, Brian. So transport covers pages 8 to 17. Brian, anything you'd like to comment on with regards to your report?
Thank you, Christine. No, just happy to talk to the report. Thank you, Ms. Reid.
All right, any questions on transportation? If you just flick that microphone off, no, not yours, the one beside you. Thanks. Yep. Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Page 14 now for you, Madam Chair, and for Brian. So just two things. Just in relation to the cycle trail, two things. We're now working on the section from Pokeroa Swing Bridge and the Peninsula Bridge down. That once that's completed, that section will be rideable. Are we intending to go back to the Tapawera Batten Road where we had an arrangement with a couple of landowners to go off-road on the gravel section before it went off-road?
Thanks, Stuart. Yeah, that is my understanding. I'm not all over that. That's another part of the section, but that's my understanding at the moment. Yeah.
And like it says in the next paragraph at 4.2, I've noticed even around Kohatu, Tapawera, there does seem to be an increase, particularly in trail bike riders riding the trail, which is concerning, particularly when you see young families that'll be in their way. So it's a bit of a worry, but I guess it's hard to keep them off.
That's correct. Yeah.
And then at 4.21, the EV chargers at Kohatu Flat are installed and people have been using both. I've seen people using both the car and the cycle ones there. So, you know, that's a good service that's been provided there by Meridian and the CAF operator. So Councillor Marling will be able to bike out there now and charge his battery and bike back. Because it's uphill coming back. Yeah, it is. So thank you.
All right, that's it. Yeah, all right.
On this section.
Cool, all right. Councillor Butler.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just with, mentioning in the mentions in the report that there's a hotter summer period coming, and I'm just wondering, we get over in Golden Bay, we get, and in other areas too, just complaints about the dust and the choice of aggregate that's actually put on the roads, gravel roads for maintenance. And I'm just wondering if there's any consideration given to the type of aggregate from that point of view, or is it just what's available at the time?
Thank you. Through the chair. Yeah, over in the Golden Bay area, we are limited as to where we can source our material. Not like in other areas of the district where we've got access to lime and other material that tends to go down, not dust up as much. So particularly over the hill there, we pretty much got to use what we've got, and it's not. It tends to bind well. It tends to have a high clay content and stay down quite well. So it's not probably as dusty as some of the other areas in the district. But yeah, unfortunately, it is really what it is from an economic point of view.
All right, Councillor Kinnermont and then Councillor Dowler. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair. First of all, thank you for the bus services that are going on. It's certainly improved life in my household. My wife now grabs a bus, puts a bike on the front, goes away for the day and cycles back. But she came home last night saying that the bus driver was saying there's going to be more buses put on. Is that a rumour or do you know anything about that at all?
Through the chair, apologies, I don't, but I can certainly find out and report back on that.
Thank you, Councillor Dowler.
Thank you. Yeah, just concerned about the streetlight poles, Brian. You're saying it's more prominent in two areas. Was that due to the batch of streetlight poles that were provided, or is it to do with the environment that they were plonked in, or what? I'd hate to think we had a faulty batch of streetlight poles.
I don't know the exact reason, but I
don't believe it was due to the batch or any manufacturing issues. But I can certainly find that out if there were. It certainly hasn't come to me that there was an issue with the batching or what we received.
And just coming back, and I know you probably can't answer this question about the bus service, but I just was wondering, do we monitor the pickup and drop offs at each individual bus stop? Because I pushed to get the bus stops in Motueka where they were, and I just need to know that they're functioning as I hope there would be, or if there's one not being used at all, we might want to relocate it or take it out or whatever. So just sometime, hopefully we'll get it maybe through the Regional Land Transport Committee, I suppose. We may get a report back, but I just know whether we were monitoring it locally ourselves.
In answer to that, yeah, we are monitoring. From what Jamie was saying to me, there's quite a bit of monitoring right at the start. That's why you've seen some figures coming out about the increased usage. Whether the monitoring's gone down to the detail of who are lights where and who gets off where, I don't know, but certainly the numbers on are being monitored, but we can find that out. Yeah.
That's my understanding as well. We're taking note of who's using it and that type of thing, trip numbers and things like that. But yeah, exactly where they're getting on and off. No, I'm not sure we're doing that.
All right. If we have no further questions on transport, councillors, I think we'll move to waters and waste update. So we've got Becky. Thank you. And this covers pages 17 to 37.
Through the chair, good morning. I'll take the report as read. I've got a couple of updates to give you, so I'll just sort of work through the report and come across them. Just looking at the waters and waste trends, there's a couple of graphs here that I'd just like to give you a little bit of further information on. There's one which is the wastewater supply jobs. You'll see there's a peak in Rewalker. I just want to let you know that that's primarily to do with the pump faults at Jenkins and the letter drops we've done there to try and prevent blockages. We've got a peak in Pahara for the water supply jobs. So whilst these graphs are representative, it's got to be borne in mind that with Pahara as being sort of such a small area, it kind of skews the graphs a little. But the spike in the Pahara ones there are primarily to do with the treatment plant, where we've had a couple of chlorine alarms that we've just had to deal to. And there's been a few pipe locate requests from a contractor working in the area. On to water. I don't have any updates for water. Wastewater, you can have to let you know that the Karakia dump station on Motueka Street will be open in a couple of weeks. And then a couple of weeks after that, we'll shut down the old one at the I side and put up some signage directing to the new one. We have had a pipe break between Lager Bay and Tartar Beach that was discovered yesterday. I think some comms went out on that yesterday afternoon. We discovered that yesterday, but it looks like we've been overflowing there for about 6 weeks. It looks like that whilst some slip work was being cleaned, we've damaged the pipe. So we're getting a temporary repair in place for that today, and we'll have to look at a proper longer term repair in the coming weeks. Let's have a quick look. Update on the Motueka wastewater treatment plant. So it's likely that we're going to start pumping there today or tomorrow. We had a meeting yesterday with Public Health and MPI to discuss what we're planning to do over the next few weeks and discuss the communications we're getting out there. So today or tomorrow, yeah, we're going to start over pumping into the wetlands. We have got a sampling regime that will start today. We're getting some comms out. We'll get the signage out tomorrow as well. We've also put out the call for see if we can replace the membranes quicker. There's generally a 4-month delay on getting the membranes. We've put out a call and it looks like we might be able to get some membranes diverted to us in the next month or two from another council who's not quite ready for theirs yet. So that's positive news. We're also looking at, well, we've already started doing some more aggressive chemical cleaning of cell 2, which is the one that's quite fouled up at the moment. It is making a little bit of a difference, but it is an ongoing process and will take a while until it's going to have much effect. But we are looking at taking cell 1 offline and doing that cleaning as well once we need to start doing the overpumping before the fouling there gets as bad as it is on cell 2. Any questions on that before I carry on?
All right, so we do have some questions. So we're going to start with Councillor Hill and then Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. My question was going to be about whether, because there's been at Tata there just before Tata that leak. There'd been a repair done there some while ago, not all that long ago. There'd been a leak and it would have been opened up and fixed up, and so I was wondering if it related to that. But how is it that if we've got contractors going into a site, so that slip at Tata has been, being cleared quite a number of times, what's our process that they know exactly where the sewer pipe is? It just seems, like a low level of functioning, I think, if we've got diggers clearing an area where there's a sewer and we can break it and not know we've broken it.
Yeah, we're not quite sure exactly what's happened there yet. We just know that it is quite shallow pipe in that area as well. In relation to the other break you're on about, I don't believe it's related to that.
Okay.
But it has highlighted the fact that we will need to renew that whole length at some point.
Because the initial break was very near, isn't it? It's right there on that corner. So anyway, a bit alarming if it's been leaking for 6 weeks as well. It's a wonder some cyclists going by didn't smell it earlier, but I think it's a concern.
Yeah, I think in those situations there, if a contractor inadvertently does something, unless it starts seeping out and people notice, because most people just drive past, probably cyclists probably go past and probably think, oh yes, some farmer's septic tank's not working or anything. But yeah, we do rely on the community to let us know when there's something amiss. And it's unfortunate this one's taken 6 weeks before it's come to light.
And what the contractors generally would know just where the pipe is, depth of it, all those things. I mean, these are folk that are coming in and making these repairs all the time. They're local sort of outfits. Yeah.
So you, Madam Chair, Madam Chair, better get it right, didn't I? Yeah, we're actually having investigations with the roading contractor involved clearing the slip to make sure that they were aware. We suspect that their operators probably weren't aware what they had done when they cleared the slip, and that's part of the investigations that we want to carry out with them. And certainly going forward, we've got to have some plan in place on how that slip is continually cleared so that the pipe is protected.
And for them to know exactly where the pipe is,
exactly,
and the depth of it. And I'm surprised it's in the ditch. Actually, I thought it'd be down there as you go down the road. A metre or so in or more.
Certainly, I've spoken to Becky about it. I think the replacement will probably put in a little bit deeper anyway, given the fact in that particular area there's a slip occurring, so that it's given more protection. But I imagine in the day, the cost of doing things has probably gone down the water table, so they don't rip up the road and have to reseal it and everything afterwards. So there's probably a cost factor. But again, if you go cheap to start with, you have a problem later. So yeah, that's right.
Thank you. And if we're talking about 6 weeks and looking at the great notification yesterday, I think from Juliet, the notifications from Juliet are fantastic. They're very, very detailed maps, red lines, But if you think that that's been leaking for 6 weeks and going into the estuary and people have been collecting seafood there and eating it, that's a real issue.
I think probably the 6 weeks is probably symptomatic of the fact that Tata is obviously a very holiday focused place and there's hardly anybody there. So the wastewater flows are pretty low. It takes a while to notice something like that. But if we've been in the middle of summer, we probably will notice it within a day or two. Yeah.
Through the chair, we were just made aware of that yesterday. So it's been going on for a wee while, but that was the first time we've had any notification from anybody.
All right, thank you. We'll move to Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question doesn't relate to wastewater, relates to water. Is that okay?
Is this for drinking water?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, no, go.
Or drinking water and tanker filling, which is at 5.14 on page 23. So Becky, this is just talking about now moving the bulk fills to the new water treatment plant at Richmond. I'm assuming that they'll still have to have some sort of license agreement or bulk payment system for water they obtain from that compound.
Through the chair, so we currently have two systems in place. We have the permitted hydrant upstands, which contractors pay to hire one of these upstands and they use against the dedicated hydrants. But we also have the swipe card system, which is for those bulk filling stations, and they use that for the bulk filling station in Motueka as well. So they can use that in Richmond and Motueka now. So at the moment we are running two processes.
Right, so if the contractors in Wakefield, you'll move them to filling from the Richmond one rather than the Wakefield supply is where I want to get to. That's the overall intention.
Through the chair, at the moment we don't have a dedicated take in Wakefield. The water treatment plant upgrade there sort of built, incorporated the hydrant into their site. So we haven't actually found a new location yet that doesn't require a reasonable amount of pipe work. So at the moment, the closest ones will be Richmond, for Wakefield
so
area.
You'll be encouraging them to use Richmond rather than go to Tapuera. And so will you look to replace the one in Wakefield or just divert them to Richmond?
We do have a funding line for putting one in at Wakefield as well. We've actually built the unit itself. We just need to find a suitable location and get it.
Right, and will that be a similar system to what you have at Richmond?
It will.
Because it seems that this is a change around the new water regulations as well.
Through the chair, it is. So the new water regulations require that there is no water take from any part of the network other than for emergency or part of operations from schemes that serve more than 500 people. So that covers Wakefield, Motueka and Richmond for us in terms of where we currently allow water to be taken from. So we've got the bulk filling stations in Motueka and Richmond, which will be operational in a month or so. And then we will put one in Wakefield. And ultimately, we would like to replace the ones in Tapuera, Murchison and Collingwood at some point down the line so that there's only the one system we have to operate. And contractors only have to hire one piece of equipment.
A much simpler system. And what I'm concerned about throughout the we're reading comments about how dry the summer's going to be. So there's obviously going to be potentially, so obviously going to be quite a big demand on this water anyway.
Yes, through the chair, and in summer as well, when we have water restrictions, the water restriction tends to get placed on this area, which means that we have to direct the contractors to Motueka to take water from those hydrants there.
I'm just looking at my Motueka colleagues.
Go there.
Yeah, hopefully that might reflect itself in the cost of buying a tanker of water if they can access it from somewhere closer, given most of the cost is transport. Yeah. All right, Councillor Mailing.
Right, well, thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Becky, for the report. Just concerned about the Motueka wastewater plant screens, which from my memory have never met specification going back a number of years. We've struggled with those screens in particular. Will the new screens be a different spec so that it actually operates better? Because we've had to clean these, and I remember they came in from overseas, and Mike Shrew has reported on this a number of times in the past, but they've been a real struggle to get them to work.
Yeah, perhaps I could answer that one for you, Becky. Yeah, I know. And it's certainly been, at what point do you throw good money after bad? We are modifying the membranes that we're talking about, in the sense that we're going to be putting some filters in front of that to try and capture some of those solids before they hit the membranes and hopefully extend the life of them. Now, we're doing some trials on that, but we did ask the question, listen, do we need to just throw this whole thing away and start again and do something else? if we did do that, obviously that's significant cost and we'll be coming back to you on it. But I know Becky and her team are busy working through the different options, and we're seeing how we'll try the filtration system, because I mean, there is money involved in it, but not as much as replacing the whole lot. And we'll just see how effective that is. One of the advantages with the filtration system in there, if it doesn't work, it can actually be utilised somewhere else. It's not something that's a sunk investment. So those are the things we're looking at the moment, yeah. But no, I understand your concerns. I mean, it was a problem when I arrived here 7 years ago, and certainly I know my predecessor had chased up the designers and everything, and of course they ran away, and we ended up with basically a system that just doesn't have the resilience that we expected. So it's one of those situations where we're left carrying the baby because of poor design. So yeah.
Councillor Dowler and then Councillor Walker.
Yeah, I'll go back to the Motueka water under 5.10, talking about the low pressure issues we're having down at the rec centre site where we fill the tankers. How far are we away through the process of getting the storage tanks sorted for down there that is proposed, that is supposed to fix that problem instead of jumping in and spending money at the moment? And, you know, I can see the point that you need to keep the pressure up, but if we're 3/4 of the way through a process of doing a fix, I'd hate to see money chucked at it now and then the fix it. I'd rather see the fix come forward if possible and spend the money in one go.
Through the chair, we do have a project for that for this financial year. We are looking at turning what was the rec centre source into storage. So we would fill that overnight and that would supply throughout the day. So that is in place for being progressed this financial year and next financial year. With regards to the pressure drops when we use the hydrants there, well, the tank filling stations, we're actually just done some tweaks so that those bores should not kick in. So we've done some tweaks on that. We've done some tweaks on restricting the actual flow that can go through. So we've lowered the flow that goes through those tank filling stations a little bit so it won't have such a demand on the pressure. So we've done those operational side of things whilst we're going to carry on doing the CapEx.
All right, thank you. Councillor Walker, then Councillor Killenmonth.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Becky, for your report. And just a couple of points I need clarification on. First, I'd like to acknowledge the comms that went out for Tata, and I really hope that Motueka gets the same kind of comms as we start pumping into our wetlands, and that whilst we are aware that we're doing work on this, that we take our community on that journey and continue to update them where things are at. My one question is, you said that you were engaging with public health and somebody else. Who was the other group?
Through the chair, that was MPI yesterday.
Oh, MPI, yeah, awesome. That's really good. And also that's part of what we need to share with our community, that we aren't doing this in isolation, that we are getting input from others. So thank you for that. And when you talk about cell 1 and that you're going to start looking at that, what impact will that have going forward when it comes to, the discharge out to the wetlands?
Through the chair. So currently we get about, let me just get my figures right here on this one. We're getting about 2,300 metres cubed in to the plant a day. With cell 2 out of operation and the limited capacity we have with cell 1 currently, we're only able to treat through that system about 1,000 cubes a day. So we're looking at potentially taking that offline as well to actually try and breathe a bit more life into it. So if we're going to be over pumping, that's when we would do that.
Okay. All right.
So it kind of takes us back to where we were at in 2016, which is before we had that filtration plant.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like such a backward step, but totally understand what Richard Kirby, his explanation around, do we throw it out or and it's great that we're having those conversations, so thank you.
Councillor Kinnamonth, and then we'll just get a comment from Mr Kirby about protozoa. So Councillor Kinnamonth.
Through you, Madam Chair, Councillor Dow asked the same question that I had, so withdraw my question.
Very good. Richard.
Hi, councillors, you would have seen an email that I sent out to you last week in light of what's happening in Queenstown regarding Cryptosporidium and protozoa. And you will note that we did list the water supplies that do not have protozoa barriers at the moment. And we've subsequently had a request from Tamata Arawai to confirm with them how we're dealing with those schemes that do not have protozoa barriers. So we're in the process of replying to that. Suffice to say that 88 Valley and Dover Valley, rural water supplies, boil water notices, so that they need to be aware of that. Actually, 88 Valley doesn't have a boil water notice, but people there are aware of the situation. Redwoods Valley is a groundwater source, and so less likely to have a protozoa because it's not coming from a surface water. And Hamama is largely from a water source, and it's largely for rural feeding. So we've let them know about the protection as well. So just to let you know that Tamata Arawai have asked us to report back to them on how we're managing this, and we are doing it. So nothing has changed from what I sent out to you the other day. But as far as the larger populations of Richmond, Wakefield, Motueka, Mapua and all of those, we do have protozoa protection in place, and we're monitoring that all the time. So, yeah.
Thanks for that update. Now, just before we break for a cuppa, I think we'll do, see, we've got David here. If we could just touch on rivers and coastal structures, that's pages 34 to 36. So anything you'd like to add to your, and waste, yeah, sorry. Anything you'd like to comment on, David?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On stormwater, no updates on stormwater and likewise waste management. Just an update on the river management activity report. Over the last week or so, we've been looking at our forward work program for rivers, and it's quite clear that our initial estimate is that the work required this year exceeds our budget. We've done a first estimate for savings, and as outlined in the report, we've got drone work to do in October and November in the Golden Bay and the remaining rivers. At this stage, we're looking at savings, and there might be some work that we can't do this year, but we'll report back at a subsequent committee report on that. And then just under gravel management, just an update that wasn't noted in the report. In the Taka River, we've issued a licence for 5,000 cubic metres of gravel. Some of that's for commercial use, and some of that's for use at the wastewater treatment plant in Taka as well.
Thank you very much.
An update on coastal as well, where I can take questions on rivers if you like.
All right, well, why don't you give us an update on coastal, and then we can take questions together.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of coastal, just the update there is that we're continuing to do some work looking at the old Motueka Wharf, and it looks like there's opportunity there for a joint council community project. There's some not-for-profit groups and people in Motueka that are interested in what we can do, and Steve Richards from the reserves team is going to lead that, bringing those groups together. So we're actively looking at that, and we're certainly taking feedback on the fence and seeing if we can do something in the short term on that as well.
All right, we'll go to questions. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask you the licences too, and just where in the river the licence is for?
Yes.
Is that kosher?
Through the chair. Yes, that's absolutely. That's to Solly's Contracting, and it's off Roses Beach.
There we go. Thank you. I think it was one of the things that came up in the consultation, wasn't it, that the rivers meeting over there was concerned around there being too much on Roses Beach, and is that in part? I don't think we make these decisions in response to we'd like you to take it from there, but is that because there has been a build up there and it'll be helpful to have it move?
Yeah, through the chair, a bit of a mixture really. We normally receive inquiries, we'd like to take some gravel. Often the contract will say, and we'd like to take it from this location, but generally these days we say, okay, you can take it from this location. So working with the science team, we've identified that the greatest surplus in that section is around Roses Beach. So it is a historic build-up location there. That's it's been that way for a while. And I think, as was sort of explained before, we're trying to take a staged approach there and just take consistent, sustainable quantities through there. So that work probably only started a few days ago, I believe.
All right, we'll have Deputy Mayor Bryant and then Councillor Dowler, and then we'll be breaking for a short break. We do have some time constraints this morning, councillors. We need to be finished by 12:25. So I'm just giving you that heads up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just two questions from me. Just David, in relation to the gravel, following on from Councillor Hill in relation to the Upper Motueka, we're now at about 20,000 cubes extracted. We've got the users group that presented that have got a much higher aspirational target. I'm hoping we're going to find some middle ground. So is there a plan to have more extracted over the coming few months?
Through the chair, yes, we're progressively working through that in a staged way. So what we'd like to get to is a steady extraction throughout the year rather than a boom and bust. So we're just working in a staged way through all those beaches, taking a lot of interest in the shape of the beach before and after the extraction. So we've got one contractor extracting in the Upper Motueka at the moment. We've got another contractor, at least two others that are interested. I believe we've issued a small license to one contractor, and there's another contractor that's interested in taking some there. In terms of the Waimea users, if you like, mixed feedback there around whether it's affordable to take from the Upper Motueka and to use in the Waimea. But we're keeping in communication with them. They're aware that there's Upper Motueka gravel available, but it's whether or not it's economically viable in their view to take from there is with them really.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And then my second question just relates to waste and the trial extract and construction waste. Is that going to be ongoing? Like, obviously you've been doing that for a month. So there's two parts to this question. And secondly, has that had any effect on the joint waste management? What's the thing we're doing? Monitoring.
Okay, so in terms of the construction waste, it's certainly a trial at this stage, and as luck would have it, construction waste is really dropping away at the moment. So we've built the facility so it's got some flexibility. We're probably coming into about the 6th week of operation now. We're going to have a look at the numbers and see if we think it's financially sustainable to keep on doing that type of operation there. We're also doing it in parallel with some work that Nelson are doing, where they're providing an option for free disposal prior to the weighbridge, if you like. This is a pay full charge and we'll separate it after the weighbridge, and that's intended to fund the diversion. And it also follows on from some work that the business unit did up at the landfill itself, looking to extract waste from, waste that goes to the landfill. What we'll do probably over the next 2 months is look at the results we're all seeing from our trials, talking to the builders and the waste companies to see what is most commercially sustainable and practically workable. And then we'll make a bit of a call on where we go next with it. So early days at this stage, we just need to, and it hasn't helped that, we've really noticed a big drop, and I think the business unit have noticed quite a big drop in construction waste at the moment. Just, I think, due to activity changes.
Thank you. Councillor Dowler.
Okay, shingle extraction. I see with great pleasure those extraction up and above the highway bridge on river just down the road here. I'd like it to hopefully be extended maybe sometime in the near future to have a look at the Motueka River Bridge. I know that the capacity's been checked left, right and centre, and we're always told the capacity's there, but I've been taken on a drive through there just recently on the Rewalker side of the bridge, or at least over half of it. I can probably stand on the sand and touch the bridge now. And it seems quite ludicrous to me that our local contractor is bringing sand up from Methven and over from Blenheim because he can't get enough out of the supply that we've got over there, because where he's extracting at the top of the Mott, most of the sand's down the bottom, and the sandbar that's building up out in the sea at the mouth of the river is showing that a whole heap of it's going out that way. We get quite regularly banged around about the amount of slash that's building up under the Mott Bridge in the channel area. So if the channel was widened up a bit somehow with approval, that may help that from happening as well. I don't know, but I'm not a river scientist, but I do know that if you don't clean the spout out in your house, you can run into trouble quite quickly. It's just a comment on that one. Whether you want to reply to that, David, or not, just it's over to you. The second one is that I've notified some councillors we've got quite an exciting piece of plant arriving in Nelson Bays in about 3 weeks' time, a mulcher that is capable of chewing up car bodies, and the video that I've been provided is showing that exact model of machines doing that, and tyres and concrete waste and all sorts. So here we are in the near future looking at reducing product going to the landfill. I think this is possibly quite a great opportunity to somehow do a private-public partnership with the owner. The owner has told me he will notify me when the machine arrives and they're set up ready to go. Quite happy for all the councils to do a trip out to have a look at it going. We'll just have to all take our own earmuffs. So tyres are the big thing. He's got an outlet through a rubber mat making facility in Christchurch to take a lot of the rubber. It's an amazing machine to watch anyway. So if you want a link of those who I haven't seen it to, I can send it to you and have a look for yourselves. I do think he has said that he may have been in contact with you, David, but he said there'll be 2 machines, one in Christchurch, one in this area. If it's a big project, they can bring both together overnight. Just throw it on the back of a truck, bring it up, and but he will have his one constantly working in this area all the time. So yeah, I'm quite excited to see that technology coming here.
Right, thanks, Councillor Dowler. You can maybe send us a link via email to the councillors. And then finally, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Just a response to your comment around the shape of the beach. So when, say with Rose's Beach, so how prescriptive is it around how the gravel's taken and what sort of, how things are left in there? Like, is there a intention to generate something other than just taking gravel?
Yeah, so through the chair, so typically, particularly in those beaches, we're normally quite prescriptive. So we normally send through a recent drone photo, where we mark up on the photo where we'd like the gravel taken from and what we want left behind. In the nesting areas, we tend to try and leave some islands for bird nesting afterwards. But we're also normally trying to take the pressure off the inside of the bend. So we go to the site before they do the work, we mark up a photo, send it on the permit, and we monitor them. If it's a bigger job, we'll probably do weekly visits just to make sure they're taking it from the right place. Yeah.
Excellent. I was just debating whether we could just carry on and not worry about a break for morning tea. But okay. I've had okay. All right. In the interest of shakes, we thank you very much, David and Becky. We'll just really 10 minutes. So if we could be back by 20 past, thank you very much.
That's going to make it a working
Silica paint, sorry,
Earthquake strengthening.
yep, earthquake strengthening, and that's about it. Correct.
One very last one. Page 39, table 2. Jobs over 3 years old. I would have thought that jobs over 3 years old shouldn't exist. You should be writing them off, or should be just saying it's too hard, or don't carry these figures forward. I'd just suggest it's a misnomer here carrying a job forward that 3 years.
Through you, Madam Chair. So most of the jobs over 3 years old are negotiations to purchase land for roading. The often, I guess it's willing buyer, unwilling seller type situation. What's happened in the last 6 months is we've really made no progress in getting people to respond. So we're at the point of doing exactly as you've suggested, is just cancelling the jobs. It depends on the I guess each specific job and how keen council is to continue with negotiations, or we just go in under the Public Works Act and take it. But yeah, we've had no progress really for the last 6 months with some of these jobs.
All right, Councillor Butler.
There's another scout hall, there's another one over in Karakia, which is in really poor condition. So I see that's not mentioned in here. Does it have a special status or something?
True, Madam Chair. No, we're very aware of the Karakia hall. It's actually been sublet to, and we're told, for about 20,000 a year. So, and we only charge 200. So it's an issue that we're trying to deal with at the moment. At this stage, we're using the Wakefields and Rewa Walker Scout Halls almost as a catalyst with the Scouting Association, but that's next on the agenda.
Okay. So my other question is to do with the community leasing policy, and I'm just assuming that this would affect the market over in Karakia, which is in the big car park outside the library. And is this is going out for consultation? I assume it says that there's going to be a bylaw controlling activities in public places. Sorry, 6.6. Sorry about that, Nick.
Through you, Madam Chair, it'll have to go up to public consultation. We've had a bit of a glitch where the planner involved in it is actually moving on to another job. So it's going to be, it's not happening as quick as we would like, but it's definitely will have to go up to consultation.
All right, and finally, Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you, through Madam Chair. Just a little bit more on 6.6, where you've got about the controlling activities in public places. Can you give me an indication on, you don't have to do it right now, but for example, this will affect food caravan agreements. What impact will that have? Sorry.
That's true, Madam Chair. I might have to get back to you on that. I'll need to have a chat with Rob Kent, and I'll get back to you today.
Cool, thank you. Or Monday's fine. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Nick. Oh, yes.
I was going to say, could you copy all councillors on that one so that everyone gets the same information? Thanks, Nick.
All right, thank you. We'll now move on to the project delivery update. Thank you, Russell. We'll hand over to you. So this covers pages 41 to 63.
Thank you. Just a quick update. Our Streets of People various transport projects are running to track at this moment, although we have been informed that the government is giving us an extra year to complete those projects, which is helpful, but we're still planning to complete them in our same timeframes. And the key there was we'd sent a number of questions to Aquatic to say, in a scenario whereby the contract carries on for a month after the funding date, who pays the bill? Because under the current funding arrangement, we'd be paying the bill. Because their funding actually stopped at a drop dead date of the end of June. So that just gives us a bit more latitude. We're not changing our program, we're still going full ahead. Just following up on some comments that Richard made to do with the carryover report last week. We're conducting a capital delivery risk review as we speak on all our key projects that I'm responsible for and across the community infrastructure in general. We'll give you an update on that probably at the next committee meeting. Other than that, I'm welcome for questions.
All right, councillors, open for questions. Councillor Butler.
Through you, Madam Chair, in relation to the Pahara stormwater improvements, you know, the big project at Pahara, that it looks like it's finishing.
Yes, it is on track. It's about to finish.
Yeah. So there was a look at the annual report, the draft annual report of the Audit and Risk Committee, and I noticed that wasn't in there in relation to the habitable floor flooding, which happened at Pahara. And I just thought it should be. I did say to Briley that it needs to be in there in relation to that being a mitigation. So I'm just making that point.
The bund is there for that reason.
Yes.
To help mitigate flood. I was unaware it wasn't at the Audit and Risk Committee.
No, it's not in the annual report. Yeah, it just needs to go in there as something that is actually mitigating that habitable floor flooding that happened at Pahara.
Duly noted.
All right, I just wonder, could I just ask a quick question with respect to the Berryfield Lower Queen Street intersection upgrade? So we've got 2.9 million earmarked for the project. But am I interpreting it properly that it would cost more, but we need to get the rest from Waka Kotahi? Or does that?
It costs approximately 3 million more, subject to our final estimates. It has to go through a business case for Waka Kotahi and then their funding agreement back to us before we can proceed. The project's on hold until such time as that funding arrives.
Right, okay. Do you want to make a comment?
You just said 3 million more. Is that on top of the 3 million you've got in here?
Yes, it's about a $6 million project.
Oh, okay.
It's the intersection plus the some road widening footpath work.
Right. I guess I'm assuming that at some point, you know, we would do a robust evaluation of how that intersection is operating with the turning lane. To assess whether we still need to spend $6 million on upgrading the intersection.
Perhaps I'll just clarify that further. That 3 million, what's in your report there is the local share only.
Yes.
It's not the total project cost. So it hasn't increased by 3 million. It's always 6 million.
Yes.
You've only got the local share in there. The other 3 million is still going to be approved from Waka Kotahi. But to answer your question, are we doing another business case on that before we commit it, or is it already been committed?
We have to do an updated business case for Waka Kotahi before they'll approve the funding.
There you go.
All right. Open for any other questions on the project update? Oh. All right. Okay. So thank you very much, Russell, for your report. And that now takes us to reserves and facilities. Oh, Nick.
Through you, Madam Chair, I've just got Rob here, and he could respond to Councillor's question regards item 6.6 and the bylaw.
Through the chair, so it's the trading in public places bylaw, which is already in place, but is being reviewed, and it's not being reviewed predominantly by the property team. Sandra Hartley is driving it along with Kat, and I don't want to try and mispronounce her name. So there's a lot of breadth to that bylaw. You know, it goes from, and the property team doesn't have input into most of it, you know, going from all the way through to, you know, people standing there with religious pamphlets to buskers to Mr. Whippy vans, all of that sort of complexity. As I say, I'm not driving it directly, but I fully expect you'll be involved in the process of developing it.
Thanks, Robert. You're happy with that, Councillor Walker? Response? Great. All right. So that then moves us on to the last section of this report, which is reserves and facilities. So we've got Tony. Thank you very much. And over to you, Tony.
Through you, Madam Chair. I'll take this report as being read. Steve Richards, who's acting on behalf of Grant Rayburn while he's away, apologises. He was going to be here to support me, but he has to go to an iwi engagement. So if there's any questions that I can answer or can't answer, I will come back to you, but feel free to ask any questions.
Very good, thank you. Deputy Mayor Bryant.
I'm just wondering if that's been, you say Wakefield Community Council, did that include the councillors, or did I miss that consultation, Madam Chair, or have you seen any of what's proposed?
I don't think we have an actual proposal to comment on. We had a few PowerPoint slides that showed some bits of equipment, which I think you and I have seen. But other than that, we haven't got a proposal document.
Well, and I guess that's my question. Is there some documentation coming to the councillors?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll ask Rob Coleman, who's leading up that project, to provide that information. I'm not fully over that project, so bear with me. I'll come back to you with that if that's all right.
So that's Councillor Mackenzie, myself, and Councillor Shellcrest.
Like Kinnan.
Yeah, well, that's right. I didn't think he was too worried about lower socioeconomic area like Wakefield. We're way down the list.
All right, so thank you. Any further questions with regards to reserves and facilities? Councillor Kinnan.
Through you, Madam Chair, and I'm not going to respond to that. Page 66, clause 8.24, depth reserve playground upgrade. Is there 2 depths reserves? Because there's one in Ruby Bay.
Through Madam Chair, I found out that last week as well. I wasn't aware that there was 2. So that playground upgrade is in Motueka. And I actually don't know where is the other depths reserve. I should know, but I'm reasonably new. But
Thank you, because I was going to accuse my people from Motueka Community Board poaching into the Waimea Mootary Board.
Thank you. Councillor Bryant, Councillor Butt.
Through you, Madam Chair. This is about the Bay Vista Drive Reserve, which is in Ahara. It's not actually in the report, and it's been an ongoing problem, and it's to do with the contractors not actually adapting to the fact that the boundary with the private ownership is not where the contractor thinks it is. It's been pointed out a number of times, and so there's a strip of grass there that doesn't get mowed or doesn't get weed eaten because the contractors are still working according to where they believe the boundary is, even though the boundary peg's there. And I have brought it up before, but I just want it to be followed up again, that this long rank grass on Bavister Drive actually gets cut rather than left, because historically somebody believes that it's actually on the neighbours, which it's not.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll follow that up with.
I really appreciate that.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Bit of a squeaky wheel thing.
Yes.
Thank
no
you.
problem at all.
All right, thank you very much. I think we do have a resolution up there on the board. Deputy Mayor Bryant moving the resolution and seconded by Councillor Dowler. So all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you very much, Tony, for jumping in at short notice. That's much appreciated. We're going to move now to the Digital Innovation Program update, and we've got Steve and Chris. Thank you.
Hi there. Nice to see you all again. So we'll take the report as read. I do have a couple of minor amendments I could talk about. Some of our projects are moving to green. So the table on the page 2 on mine, 6.4 for you. The overall programme is moving to green, as are all the other projects. Largely, we're just catching up with ourselves with the planning. Things are progressing really well. Things are moving into procurement. So we are getting good head of steam underway for the year now, which is good news. And I also shared some information there about our forward planning, which is part of the LTP. And we've got quite a lot underway there with all of the reviews, the risk reviews for the LTP that you're aware we're doing. So we'll be able to expand on that a wee bit more in the council workshops in October that we're coming again to explain that a bit more, because it is, as you know, we're looking again at all of our budgets and how things are moving. But I thought that would give you a flavour of where those cost increases are that we talked about in that workshop.
Thank you very much, Chris. And I shall now hand over for questions. Councillor Kinnamonth.
Through you, Madam Chair. Excuse my naivety, you might have told me before, but what does it mean when it's amber? What does it mean when it's green? Like, what are the implications to financial and the projects?
Sure. So it's an indication of the health of the project, and it catches a lot of things in there. So it can be to do with budget, timelines, scope changes, and so on. So in green, we're confident we're on track to time, to budget, to the scope, what we're trying to achieve. And amber indicates that there's something that we're having some concern about, and that comment usually explains what that concern is and what we're doing about it. In most of the cases with these projects, it's getting them started up has been my challenge, new into the role. And as things are in red is where they need a significant decision. We can't deliver the project for some reason.
Thank you. Just a thought from myself, which is a slightly provocative one. You know, in your report, you've itemised under table 3 the $4 million potential shortfall in the budget for the DIP program. And then the first item is actually 900,000, which is of course nearly $1 million, as a new provision for backfilling of staff working on the DIP business change projects. Now, I totally understand how important it is to get that resource from the business. I mean, it's critical to the success of your projects. I've got no problem with that. But organisationally, it's a choice to be made, because, you know, we can either decide that this is an incredibly high priority piece of work and that's what we want the business personnel to be working on, or not. And so I guess I maybe would be putting it to Steve in terms of the discussions that you might have around the ELT project, that we could choose not to fund that, and it will be up to the business to make sure that they release the people that you need and adjust their work programs accordingly. So I guess my request to you is that I would like this to be quite an explicit conversation when we come to the LTP exercise. So you might want to comment, you might not, but I mean, I guess I'm putting it to you as a request, because I think that it's a very explicit decision that that can be made, which can go one way or the other.
Yeah, thank you for your question, and back through you, Madam Chair. The reason why we have made an explicit provision going forward is that the retrospectives and the post-implementation reviews that we have had have identified that that subject matter experts or subject matter expertise is one of the critical limiting factors in the projects that we have done so far. And without them, projects tend to last longer and cost more as a consequence of that. What we have is that our various business units, for various reasons, have not made provision within their own budgets to backfill staff. So the easiest way to think about it would be, for example, with a financial project, you need to have a financial accountant, a financial expert who understands our finance system to contribute to the project. If we take them into the project space, we are then removing them from all of the BAU functions that they would otherwise do. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about backfilling or making someone's time available. Absolutely, we can have the explicit conversation. There are other ways that you can solve that problem. You take longer, for example, or you don't do as much. And what we've done here is made a determination that the 900,000 is better spent in this context than it is in some others. So we'll have the conversation. It's a good one to have.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I guess, you know, I'm probably always going to support the accountants because, you know, but in actual fact, you know, nearly $1 million over the life. That's not all about subject matter expertise coming from the accountants. There's going to be other parts of the business that are contributing. So in actual fact, even understanding the breakdown of that more would be useful. Anyway, I'm happy to leave it there, but I think that it's a really important point.
Yep, but just for the avoidance of doubt, the accountants one was just an example. We do expect that we need to backfill right across the whole organisation. It's a very easy one to understand about the specific knowledge that they bring. The other thing, of course, too, is that if projects are not funded as part of the long-term plan, then the backfill resources are not required either. So it's not that we're looking for one end or the other.
And I guess just another comment. You know, I did appreciate the financial report, Chris, in terms of the way you presented the information there. So thank you for that. Any further questions for Chris? No, you see, I've scared everybody at the thought that they might have to come back. Thank you very much. Thank you for your report. Now we seem to have. Oh, no, we don't. I was looking for John, but he's not here. So Yuli is here. Thank you very much. We're going to move to the environmental education. Oh, sorry. We do have a resolution on the board to receive the DIP update report, moved by Councillor Walker, seconded by Councillor Butler. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Julia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So today we are reporting on the environmental education. So our community partnerships team has 3 part-time officers that are focusing on environmental education, and it includes working with the schools, but also with the general public. And in today's report, we are going to be focusing on the delivering of this environmental education in partnership with other teams across the council and how we are helping them to achieve the environmental outcomes. And so we would like to take this report as read, and I would like to pass also on to Jessie to run through some slides with you as well.
So we can head on through to the next slide, please. Feel free to pause me at any point if you've got any questions, anyone? Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. So yeah, this is our environmental education team here at council. So we've got Prashanti, Claire or CJ and myself. Prashanti and I are both based here in Richmond and we job share. I'm recently returned from maternity leave for a year, and yeah, CJ's over the hill in Moorhua, Golden Bay. So together our goal is to empower our communities with the knowledge and tools that they need to effectively care for their environment and live sustainably. And we work generally with the topic areas of water quality and conservation, biodiversity, air quality, climate change and waste minimisation. But we dabble in a bit of everything really, whatever's required by anyone across council is welcome to approach us and get our help. In terms of why this is important for council, it balances our regulatory and compliance functions by providing opportunities to engage with and support our communities. And it really aligns with various different council strategies and plans, including our Nelson Tasman Waste Management and Minimisation Plan, the Tasman Climate Action Plan and the Tasman Biodiversity Strategy, among others. And we partner really closely with other council departments as well as community organisations and businesses in delivering this environmental education, both within formal education settings and outside of those. And that really allows us to build positive and close relationships in our communities. So as Yulia mentioned, the focus for this presentation is really on how we collaborate with different teams across council. And we're going to talk to a few different examples of that. So one recent example, Prashanti's run some community composting workshops over the past couple of months, one down at the Richmond Library that I helped her with recently. Had a really good turnout. The room was packed and everyone was asking heaps of different questions about composting and worm farms and bokashi. Prashanti's got amazing knowledge over all those different composting methods and is really wonderful at sharing it. And for me personally, it was really encouraging to see how invested people are in wanting to not only compost, but to do it really, really well. So that's really encouraging in terms of waste minimisation. We also do a lot of water education work. So this, the photos up there now are showing some stormwater and stream health education that Prashanti and Andrea Goodwin, our stormwater quality specialist, recently did at Waimea College. So that middle photo there, you can see there's a catchment model that's been made specifically for us and is held by Tasman Bay Guardians and some of the work they do with other school groups and things, just showing students how water flows through the landscape and how it's all interconnected. And then on the right there, you can see some of the different invertebrates that students are finding in the stream, which helps to indicate what sort of quality the water is. So that's done regularly with the called SAVE classes at Waimea College for year 9 and 10 students, and to keep them really engaged in what's going on in our waterways. These photos here are showing a community planting day at Bork Creek held earlier this year. And that came about because there was going to be some planting done there by NELMAC, and Prashanti and Giles worked together to get the plants. Instead of getting them all planted by NELMAC, they gave the opportunity for community members to come down and be involved. Bork Creek's an interesting waterway because it's a really important stormwater management sort of system, but it's also a waterway and it's a community space. So a really nice way to get community members involved and feeling a bit more connected with that area. And yeah, I was told the 250 plants were put in the ground in record time because they had so many people there. So that's really cool to see. This here is an example of some climate education that we've just started getting involved with. So this was at the Cawthron Inspire Festival held at Garran College, which had students aged from 8 to 13 years old from all over Tasman and Nelson. We had one student come all the way over from Collingwood, which was really cool. And the idea of this festival was to get students excited about science, technology, engineering, arts and maths. So I went along there, supported by Prashanti, running this workshop about what sort of changes we can expect in our climate and how we can plan for those and make the most of what our climate's going to be in future. We're really conscious when we're working with young people around climate, thinking about how we can do that in a way that's inspiring for them rather than terrifying, because that's sort of the general approach to climate, well, natural response to climate change is to be quite scared. So that's very valid, but we really want to make sure we're empowering our young people and making them feel positive about the future and the way that they can have an impact on it. So we had lots of different ideas here, from dam building and using canals to get around, to avoiding having any impact on the environment at all and not using electricity or anything. So really interesting way for students to start to understand that when you are planning for the future, you need to take in lots of different viewpoints, and that's quite a complex task. We're now looking at how we can use this kind of workshop with different audiences, and we'll be running a similar sort of thing with the Youth Council in December. But if any of you have got groups in the community you're working with or know might be interested in doing this kind of thing, then we're certainly open to hearing suggestions. This is an example of the Take the Jump messaging, which is a movement that started in the UK in 2022. It's backed by science, and they've identified, in the UK they use 6 different actions. Here in New Zealand it's been adapted to include 7 actions that people can take in their daily life to achieve the reductions in greenhouse gases that we need to keep warming to below 1.5 degrees Celsius. So it's really simple everyday things, like from planting trees to dressing retro, meaning to buy second hand rather than new where you can. Travel fresh is another one, so you can take the bus or use active transport. And we use this at the Inspire Festival to take students from that big picture future thinking back to the everyday here and now, so they could understand what they can do walking out of that workshop to make a positive difference. And it was really well received. It's really clear, simple messaging and things that even really quite young people can get involved with. So we're looking at potentially doing something internally at council with Take the Jump to see how that messaging goes here, and if that goes well, we can then extend it a bit more into the community. But at the moment, really just watching what the Climate Forum's doing with this and seeing if or how it might align with our work as well. This here is the community working bee that was held at the Painsford Pa Harakeke earlier this year. So that was really led by Nell and supported by Blair Reid from the Freshwater Improvement Fund and the Mana Whenua Ki Mohua team. And then Prashanti and CJ got involved and brought Collingwood School along, and it became a real 3-generational, really special day, restoring that Pa Harakeke site, weeding and things like that. There is a video there. Perhaps in the interest of time, we can skip that today. This one is a photo of planting done at Wakefield School. So Richard Helton from our reserves team has been amazing over the past few years with supporting a large number of different schools from across the district with planting projects. Often students, as part of their environmental education at school, want to get involved with planting trees either at school or on reserves nearby. And Richard's been amazing at helping facilitate that. This one, was Wakefield School, but other examples recently have been Appleby School down at Waimea River, and then Hope School at Bush Reserve. And the Waimea College planting day happened very recently. So they have the youth 18s go down to Waimea Inlet once a year and do a graduation planting. So they've got a place they can go back to and stay connected with the district for years to come. Another project that we've been involved with is educational signs. So this one was the Pa Harakeke sign for Wakefield School. So they planted a Pa Harakeke out in Wakefield in 2020 and had Harakeke from all over the place, lots of different types. And now they've got a sign explaining what those different types of Harakeke are and the tikanga around harvesting it. And another educational sign that our team's been part of, this one, tuna or eels in Balk Creek. This one came about because there's been a few instances now of tuna being slaughtered down at Balk Creek, unfortunately. So there's an area by the bridge there where people are often feeding eel, and children and families really enjoying that experience. But that does unfortunately mean that the tuna become a bit more trustworthy of humans, and then it makes them really vulnerable. So the idea with this sign was to help educate people that actually we're best if we just leave them be and don't touch them or feed them or engage with them. Just watch them from afar. To try to discourage that antisocial behaviour of harming the eel. And then this week, Matt Moss and I have been down to the Waimea River because there's nesting populations of banded dotterel and black-fronted tern down there at the moment. And it's an area it's commonly accessed by four-wheel drivers and things. So we're really just wanting to minimise any disturbance in the riverbed down there through to the end of February. So we've put up 8 signs down along the river just this week, explaining what birds are there and how to look after them. Yeah, I think that's us.
All right, thank you very much, Jessie, for the presentation. And we've also got the report. So we'll now move to any questions, and we have one from Councillor Butler.
Thank you to you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report.
You're welcome.
I'm just wondering about the schools and engagement with the schools. Do you wait for schools to come to you, or do you go to schools yourselves to offer workshops and because some schools expand themselves because they've been stuck. Schools are not doing anything.
Yeah, so I guess I should mention that in this report, we've focused specifically on projects that have come up more generally with the community through cross-council collaborations. We haven't touched so much on everything going on in schools. But yes, the way that it works with schools is we have got our Enviro Schools program, which, yes, and that's quite a proactive one of us keeping in touch with schools and supporting them through their Enviro Schools process. If other schools want support, yes, we generally are. If they will contact us. And then if we were doing something like, for example, a wider climate change awareness or workshop or something, we might go out and contact schools. We do often find though that when we're contacting schools, there's often not much response back, simply because schools have got a lot on their plate. It always works a lot better if they've identified a need in an interest area and they contact us. And often that will come in through someone like Richard Hilton, who's worked with schools in the past and done plantings with them, then he'll pass something through to us, that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's important to really proactively engage with schools, and if you're finding that you're not getting the uptake, it may be that you just need to try a bit harder or try in a different way.
Yes, absolutely.
Councillor Kinnan.
Thank you. Through the chair. Your last comments here about birds nesting. I'm dealing with Stephen Richards regarding some birds nesting on the spit at Mapua Leisure Park.
Okay.
So where do you fit into that process? Like, he's offering me signs as well, and you're offering a similar sort of service, or where's the difference there?
I'm not sure what exactly Stephen's offering you, but it may be that they are the exact same signs because he's aware of what we've just done down at the Waimea. That was a very long list of people on the email chain for the Waimea River one. We had from the stormwater and rivers team through to Trevor, James and Matt from the science sort of area. So we, as much as possible, we do let each other know what we're doing and collaborate.
Yep. Julia?
I just wanted to add a little bit with the science and involvement with science, only because we help to interpret the actual science behind the science. So basically it's an educational component. So if it's just the science, don't park here, then we will not be involved. But if it's actually about the interpretation and telling the story, like you've seen with Board Creek, then there will be our team who support the team to develop and help them to tell the story so our community can understand it and be more engaged with that.
Councillor Ellis?
Thank you, through the chair. Julia, is there any indication of how long until that Walk Creek signage does come in? I understand we've been quite some time for that.
It's all completed as far as I'm aware, and we're just awaiting installation, but I'll follow up and find out when that's going in. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I mean, this is really, it's heartwarming stuff, isn't it? And it's not just about the impact that you have at places, for example, when you do the planting and we can see the plants growing, but it's actually the impact that you're having, particularly on the children. You know, it lasts with them forever, and it helps to, you know, form their views. So congratulations on the work that you're doing. I see firsthand in my community, you know, the kids getting involved and what's achieved, and it's really fantastic. So we do have a resolution up there on the board. Do we have a mover for that resolution? Councillor Ellis, thank you. Seconded by Councillor. Oh, are you pointing at someone? Oh, Councillor. It's like that. Seconded by Councillor Dowler. I'll put that resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We shall now hand over to Councillor Hill. Thank you. Okay.
Received a text from some people. I've just counted 24 people getting on the bus to Motueka. Great to see it being used.
Oh, great.
Well done, Tasman and the other council.
Nice.
It is. It's great.
Not in Richmond, it's that.
Yeah. Fantastic. Councillor Hill.
Karakia tātou, kia hiki te kōrero, kia wātia, kia mama te manawa o te tangata, kia ki te ara mō tātou e oro nei, ko rongo ki runga, kia tina, hui e tai kia.